you went up? Now what did you get?
Well, it's because of the.
Did you go up?
Oh, I did go on.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God. No.
Thank God.
Okay. So Ms. Sandoval talked to us also about wanting to change, I guess, how we're tracking.
Right.
Did you see how I'm going to be doing it now? Over there.
Over there.
So.
Okay. Yeah.
They're really going to be tracking themselves with the sheets that we gave them,
Yes.
and also we can add in the thing that we worked on yesterday with, that you worked on yesterday with algebra, where they're going to be individually tracking their own TEKS. So it's really like a whole like tracking system, but they're gonna have to keep track of their own. So anywhere that they scored zeros on their overall, for example, we have it here in this information over here. In the learning standard breakdown,
There you go.
anywhere where they scored 0 on that specific TEK,
Mm-hmm.
they are really in charge of, like for example here, the student, 0% on 8.2 AR.
Mm-hmm.
Up there, that's why I want them to move that over here. Like, I'm gonna call this like my data center over here in the back. They're gonna get worksheets specifically for that
TEK.
TEK, yes.
Yeah.
And then kind of make themselves like an enrichment packet.
There you go.
So we also moved it to where they're doing it also in tutorial from now on. So my kids in my regular classes are gonna be doing that, but we're doing also, but we're doing it into tutorial as well. And I think we have to introduce it in class so that in tutorial, they can be a little bit more used to it.
Right.
Because if not, it's gonna be chaos. We tried it last Thursday, and it was pretty chaotic. Excuse me.
So Ms. Bonura, you were saying that we're getting new books to address what?
To address some of the tics that the students have shown to
Be missing.
you know,
Okay.
where they.
Which books are they?
And so one of the other things that I wanted to, that I came over here to talk to you about is that, because of some of these scores, the English, the writing teachers are going to be helping you.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so this is where we need to come together and kind of plan. And the principal wants us to do that, okay? And we've done it in the past also.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, we are going to have to be more specific and designate a couple of days from the writing so that we can address those needs where the students are.
The one thing I haven't done really, or we haven't done really, is to look at which TEKs were overall.
Yes.
Missed.
We've only looked at individual for this, like per
Right.
student.
Right.
But overall, we really haven't, we have not done that yet. Now, the other thing that we also talked about is that almost every TEK has already been covered.
Mm-hmm.
We've already covered it. But this year the
But
curriculum
it's
was.
ongoing. You know,
Well, this
it's
curriculum was a
okay.
little bit, this year's curriculum was a little bit different because it kind of went through all the TEKs
Mhm.
all before the benchmark. And I believe that what they're doing is that after the benchmark is just kind of reinforcement
Right.
until the next benchmark, and then reinforcement again for the actual
Right.
first administration. But maybe I'm feeling that they kind of felt rushed. Do you think so?
Mm-hmm.
On this one, yes. I think we were just completely rushed into just having the kids learn
What
all
did
this
the
material
objectives
and
do?
that they weren't being able to absorb it.
Right.
Okay.
Because that's how we felt in 7th grade, and there were some things that we didn't go over that were on the test.
However, the thing that we also have to consider though too, that what I'm thinking that you're gonna say is that
Right.
all this stuff was already learned already.
Exactly.
So,
So
this whole year's reinforcement to what.
right. And you see, that's what we tell our kids too in 7th grade. This is like a refresher, so you should already know this. If you don't know it,
Yeah.
then okay, we'll
Yeah, 'cause-
eventually attack it whenever
Well,
that
Because
T
we're
comes out
different
on
than, for
the
example, like science.
on the thing.
I know that they have like they're cumulative where they learn. I mean, they're picking up stuff from 6th grade, but every year they're learning something new,
Correct.
right?
Right.
That's how they're
Right.
different from us. And main idea has not changed from 6th grade, reinforce in 7th and reinforce again.
It's just
in
reinforcement.
8th grade.
Right.
The only thing that's changing from what I heard is that the kind of like the bar goes up.
The level.
The level,
level.
like the level of questioning
Right.
goes up a little bit
It-
more.
It gets higher,
Mm-hmm.
goes higher by the year.
But
Right.
they should really know it. So that's why, yeah, I know it, like, I think it did feel like it was a little bit rushed, but at the same time, they should know this material already.
Yeah. No, that's the same thing with us too. Now, what we're doing for tutoring is what we're gonna do. What Mr. Garcia said. the study island. We really like that a lot. I mean, we're still kind of learning it, like fiddling around with it and things like that. But I like it that it addresses every TEK.
Yes.
So you can, like how you said, how were you going to do that with your kids? With the
Well,
tutorial?
we're doing that more in class.
Okay.
Like in class, and we're using more like a supplemental aid. And also, I know like in both of our classes, we're doing it to where, so per district policy, we have to give them makeup work,
Right.
right?
Right.
But we felt it was better just to give them reinforcement on that specific objective that worksheet was addressing or whatever.
Yeah.
So now like they really don't have to have a paper to take home, or we don't have to be printing out papers for them. We just tell them this is a TEK that you were working on, and then they go home and they work on that specific objective. at
Correct.
home. I am requiring an hour. That's what we're requiring, an
No,
hour of
that's
study
good.
island time at home as a replacement grade.
Right.
So they kind of have a choice there where they have like 15 minutes or 20 minutes of homework, or the 1 hour of
The 1
study
hour
island
study
that just
island.
focuses on that one objective that they need to work on.
Right. Now, Miss Bonura, how are the English teachers going to help them now? Like, what are they going to be doing?
Okay, well, what we have been told, and you know, what we're coming up with is a plan that is going to address,
Uh-huh.
actually, yeah,
Yeah. Keep it quiet. Thank you. You're good. You're good.
we're going to be addressing all the TEKS, okay, for reading.
Oh, I'm reading.
And I know that it's actually,
Okay, we'll have to continue this in a minute. Deedee Dominguez, and she is 6th grade ELA writing. Hello, Miss Dominguez.
Hello, Russen.
Okay, and Dr. Cortez, we're going to go over her data today, as I'm going to compare her data with mine, and then I'm going to compare mine with Mr. Garcia and Miss Reyes in 8th grade. So, Miss Dominguez, when did you take your benchmark test, or a 6 weeks test? What did you take?
The English,
Okay, the English, and was it a benchmark or a 6 weeks
a
test?
6 weeks test.
Okay, because why doesn't 6th grade do a benchmark test?
Because we don't test on the STAR for 7th grade writing, and
Correct.
so they just gave us a 6 weeks test right now. to look
Okay,
at.
there you go. So then we're gonna just look at the 6th grade.
Yes, let me
while
get
we
it here.
okay, and this is Eduphoria.
Right.
And what is Eduphoria, Miss Dominguez?
Eduphoria is like, I guess, a program in which they're able to keep all our different scores of the students per class period, per 6 weeks, per, benchmark period. They're able to keep track of what we did each of the different 6 weeks, each of the different benchmarks. We can compare them to how we did with the rest of the campus. We can compare it to the rest of the district. And when it's like state exams, I guess we can compare with the state as well, too.
And that's what we do in 7th grade also, Dr. Cortez. Now, Miss Dominguez, you were teaching reading before, but now you're teaching writing. How do you see that there's a difference between reading or writing, or is there not a difference?
Well, there's a difference because a lot of the skills do overlap. But of course, when you're just teaching reading, you're going to focus more on the various reading skills that are going to be covered on the STAR test, plus also just the regular, just comprehension skills, just vocabulary skills, just, improvement in those areas. Whereas in the writing, we're not just concentrating on their oral speaking or their visual comprehension, like they have to actually possess the writing skills.
Correct.
To write their essays, to write their paragraphs, to write their, have to know their transitional words, their phrases, their conclusions, introductions.
Awesome. Now, Dr. Cortez, with the 6th grade ELA, like Ms. Dominguez said, they don't benchmark because, well, they don't test in 6th grade, but they do test in 7th grade. So with the 6 weeks test, along with your instruction, you're preparing them for when they take the benchmark in 7th grade.
Yes, our goal is to help the 7th grade teachers in their exam because the students did not take a STAR exam the last time they took it was in 4th grade.
Correct.
And so in that time, it's understandable that some of the teachers since then, like in 5th grade, may have not focused on a lot of the writing skills because they're going to be testing on various other subjects. And so they do cover the skills, but maybe not as in-depth. So we just want to make sure that they have a review, they know all the skills, that by the time they go to 7th grade,
Correct.
hopefully the 7th grade teachers are not having to start from scratch all over again.
Correct. Very good. Awesome. Now, Ms. Dominguez, which classes are we gonna look at first,
Well,
so
we'll
we
look
could maybe
at-
compare? Which
we'll
one, like, because Dr. Cortez, we all have a SPED class as well as an ELL, which our ELLs are included in there in our SPEDs. So now, how many SPED classes do you have, Ms. Dominguez?
2.
2, okay, everybody should have 2. So what periods do you have them? You wanna look at them first, or you wanna go in order?
We'll look at those first, and actually we'll look at like the special, I mean, that class period, but it's divided into 2 groups right here. So we'll look at the first group
Okay,
without those students in it. So here's
Perfect.
my 6 weeks test,
okay, very good.
second 6 weeks test.
Mhm.
Okay, and so here I can see how each of the students performed. They all met approaches except one of them right here.
Okay, and we don't have to say names. Now,
Right.
what was the approaches score is, what do they need to pass in order to make approaches? I believe it was a 55.
But I think, no, for the English here, I think they had it set at 60 for us.
Oh, okay, because it was a 6 weeks test. Okay,
Right, so they placed it at 60 right here. So then you can see our meets and then the masters. So
Correct.
what I do is I usually then go to my teacher summary
Mhm.
just to get an overview. And so here I can see that in that group, but that's without the special needs students.
Right.
I have 36% that made masters, 72.73% that had meets, and
Very good.
91% that had approaches.
Awesome.
And then if I go to the next group, which would be that same class period,
Right.
but it's going to be, let me just make sure I get down here. Oh, here it is.
Mhm.
It's going to be just my special needs group.
Correct.
So if I go to them, let's see, where am I? Sorry,
It's all right.
here we go.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to get in there. And then here we are.
Okay.
And then I can see here how they did. Now, here I had like 2 out of my 5 that did not get the approaches level, but 3 did.
Okay.
And I can see here, like 1 got into the meets level,
Mhm.
and then made in the masters at this point. But we
Right.
are working with them, and so
No,
we
that's
hope to
good.
be moving them to that level.
Right. Now, let's look at you have 2 GT classes or 1?
2 GT classes.
Okay, so let's look at your GT so we can see if there was.
Okay, so
Uh,
we'll look here
okay.
at, this is my last period,
Mhm.
and so we'll go in here.
Mhm.
And then here I can go ahead and see too, I'll just go to like the teacher summary,
Right.
and in here I can see that I had, everybody made it into the approaches level. I had 96% approximately that made it into the meets, and I had 73.91 that made it into the master's level in the 6 weeks test.
Okay, so that's still your GT group, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and what I want you to keep in mind too is that since it is like still toward the beginning, we do kind of like initially like give them a little head start because we've gone over the various like strategies.
Right.
Like we give them like a little, okay, remember this, we kind of guide them in the
Mhm.
very beginning to give them that confidence to start,
Correct.
completing all of these kinds of this kind of exam.
So how did your GT do? What was your percent score, your approaches, meets, and masters?
On my approaches for this particular class, everybody met the approaches
Oh,
level.
very good.
And then I had 95.6% that made it into the meets, into the meets level.
Correct.
And I had 73.91% that made it into the masters
Okay, very,
level
very
in
good.
that group.
Very good.
So that's what I'll do. I'll go like back and forth and just see how they did.
Mhm.
I can also check how they did like in reading.
Right.
And
Math
compare
and
that
all
and
those
see.
things.
Because sometimes they're strong in reading, they're also strong in writing,
Writing.
because I still do try to focus as we're writing, how that ties into like first person or second
Right.
person.
Right.
So we'll still try to cover like some of the skills that are being discussed in reading.
Correct.
Because since reading and writing do like overlap with each other.
Correct.
So we'll still go ahead and tie in the reading skills into whatever we're writing.
Very good. Awesome. So now let's look into, we already saw a GT, so let's look into your regular,
Without the.
without the SPED pops and without the GT.
Okay, so that would be like my 4th period class, so we'll
Okay.
come in here. And let me go down to their 6 weeks test,
Very good.
and We have a lot of little steps.
Yes.
I've sometimes
We get confused
lost
with them
it,
too.
yes. Okay, wait, there it is. Did they pop up? Okay. I don't know why they're not popping up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so then I looked here and I'm gonna go to my teacher summary.
Right, okay.
Okay, and then when I come in here, I can see that I did have 100%, also make it into the approaches here.
Okay.
Meets was approximately 67%, and I had 60 in the masters
Okay.
at this level.
Very good.
So they still did very well. What I'll do too then is just go to my total pops
Mm-hmm.
at the very bottom and just look at all my students all together.
Right, yes, okay.
And then once I go in here, then I can compare like with the rest of the campus
Correct.
and see how it all
Turned out.
turned out, right.
Okay.
So I'll go here, and this is me. So I had overall with my students in the approaches, I had 97%.
Very good.
In my meets, I had 80, almost 82%,
Mhm.
and in my masters, I had 64.
Okay.
So then I'll go ahead and I'll come over to the campus,
Mm-hmm.
and as a campus, it was still very good.
Very good.
We had a 75 practically, as a percent score, yes.
Mhm.
But our approaches was 82 overall, meets was 60, and masters was at 42.6, like 43%.
Right.
So then I can check also like with the district.
Mm-hmm.
And in our district, well, when I look at the total students right here, I can see that this pretty much just matches like ours. So I don't know if some of the other campuses may have not focused on that 6 weeks test, because if they
Right.
were
That's true.
in a block,
Correct.
they may have not done that.
Right, and we used to be blocked, Dr. Cortez, but now we're not anymore. Now, Deedee, Miss Dominguez, I'm sorry, do you prefer it to be block or you prefer separate?
I kind of prefer it
Mm-hmm.
separate because I do give that little more emphasis and that focus onto the writing
Right.
that maybe I was lacking in before when we were in the blocked and I had the reading and the writing together.
Mm-hmm.
I would focus a lot more on the reading. I was like more comfortable with that.
Correct.
But I've learned like more about the writing, and I just feel like the students are better prepared
Correct.
for 7th grade in this fashion.
Mhm.
And the kids are also like stay focused
Correct.
for that period of time. Sometimes they didn't stay as focused when we were working
With the both.
with the block.
Mhm.
They would like get kind of antsy and get distracted, especially when they see other classes
Correct.
changing classes
Correct.
and not us. But I think that there's also like another campus that's also like.
I think it's South that's blocked and they really don't
But like
it.
Memorial has gone
Yes.
to being unblocked as well
Unblocked.
too.
Correct.
Yes.
Very, very good. So overall, you did very good. Now, I mean, this is a kind of a personal question. How did you rank? Did you rank first, second, or third?
I don't even know how to tell that. How do you tell?
Did you ask the other two writing
Well,
teachers, or you all haven't
They're
discussed
not
it?
always as open.
Right, I know. No, I know. I come from that world too. But other than that, that's really good because you're already preparing them for 7th grade when they take the STAR test.
Right.
You know, so that's very awesome. And like I like that you said that when we were blocked or when you all were blocked, you had to focus more on the reading instead of the writing. And then when they got
I felt
to
the pressure for that because that's what my score is going to be on, is the reading. But I
The
would still I've always been the type that I would still be tying in all the writing into it. But I
Correct.
don't feel like I went into it as in depth as I do now.
correct, yes.
Like they would still have to do a lot of writing, we'd still do a lot of connecting, we would still do a lot of, whenever we could, we would do writing as well too.
Right.
So, but I felt now like I'm following more of like the format
Right.
for writing, like whether introductory paragraphs or thesis statement or supporting ideas and all of that, like maybe I didn't focus as much on before when I was a block. So
Right, okay.
I feel like I give it the proper attention now that I was lacking in before.
Yeah, very good. Very good, Miss Deedee. Now, you're going to record me because I'm going to go over some of my results and kind of
Oh.
compare with yours too.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Is it paused now?
No, it's no, it's still going. It's
Okay,
like-
we're still going.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're
so
still
now-
going. Yeah, so we're going. So,
Okay.
Hi, I'm Dr. Cortez. You know who I am, and you just met my very good friend, Miss Dominguez, Deedee. We love her here in 6th grade. So my overall scores were, my percent score was 64 because we round up. Approaches, I got a 70. Meets, we got a 39. and masters we got a 20. So overall, 7th grade, my 2 other 7th grade reading teachers didn't want to divulge their information, but they did say that we could divulge our overall score. Now, our overall score for our reading benchmark was a 76, which is very, very good. So we were at the meets. So all 3 of us had a lot of students that had meets. Now, Ms. Dominguez had these students last year, and you sent them to us, I believe, with a 74. So we went up a little bit, 2 more points, which is good. So we're only
Yes.
keeping them up. Now, for my special education pops, I had a 33%. They all got in the 33s, so we already know what we need to do. We need to differentiate a little bit more. I wrote the curriculum this summer, and we have some differentiation materials. My GT population, both scored 100%, so those, they made masters, so we were good with that one. I did have one student where she got a perfect score of 100, so she didn't miss any, and she actually came from this team, you all's team.
Awesome.
I know.
What was her-
Sierra.
Yes, very
oh my God,
good.
very, very brilliant little mind girl there. So other than that, our results are only going up. Now, Mr. Ramos did suggest what would we be doing for tutoring. So me and my other 2 reading teachers, we devised a plan of we're each gonna alternate. So one Monday would be me that did tutoring, Ms. Davila would do another tutoring the following Monday, and then Ms. Ramirez would end on the last Monday. But we're also incorporating enrichment tutorials, where enrichment is kind of like a study hall, but it's in the beginning of the school time, which starts at 8 to 8:30, I believe. Yes, hello, yes, 8 to 8:30. So we would be pulling out kids who didn't get the approaches, because that's what we want to work on. And the approaches is the 55% and up.
And when were you gonna do the Monday tutorial?
When we got back from Thanksgiving break.
But during what time? Like what time?
Oh, the Monday tutorials, it was going to be after school,
Oh,
from
great.
4 to 5. 4:05 to 5:05, I'm sorry, because
Yes.
that's when we officially end school. So
Yes.
we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be doing that for tutorials. We want to see if we can get those kids in. I'm going to talk to 8th grade in a minute to see what they're doing for tutorials, but I'm going to flip it back to Ms. Dominguez and
Yes.
ask Ms. Dominguez, so what have you all been doing for reading and writing tutorials?
Well, I know that the reading tutorials, they have the after-school tutorials. I'm not sure the days that they do them. I know that it's Miss Marisol Benavides that does it. I think Miss Moreno also helps in there with the tutoring.
Right.
And in the writing, what we usually do is I pull them in like during enrichment. If they're having
Right.
difficulty with something, I'll pull them in during that time. Or if they're not able to do it, because we have other curriculum we need to follow a lot of times also. So if there isn't time to do that during the enrichment, then I'll go ahead and pull them in during lunch. And I'll work with them at that time. And also, we just have like a few spare minutes during class time. I'll just pull them to the side and give them some little pointers on what they need to do. I'll give them a little pump, a little check. You know, we'll check in their journals, we'll check in their spirals, and see what they're doing. Like every day, we go ahead and we tackle like what I call DOL, sentences of daily oral language.
Very
We have
good,
that as
yes.
a bell ringer when we come in.
Yes.
So every day, we're covering basically like the revising type of little
Very good.
corrections that we need to do. So they're learning not only the proper vocabulary, they're also recognizing the proper editing marks, and they're also being able to then apply that to their various benchmarks, to their various writing themselves. So like today, we're doing a little assignment that they just needed to quickly like write down some complex sentences, and at first they said, well, why? They couldn't remember what complex sentences were.
Right.
But then I referred to what we do with our introductory phrases and clauses when we're working with our DOL. And I said, remember when we use this, when we write this, remember these? And they were like, oh, yes. And I said, and then they remembered what to do. And I said, but those phrases can, even though they're at the end of the sentence, I said,
Correct.
it still would be a complex sentence. I said, so you don't have to have it at the beginning, you can have it at the end. As long as you have one independent, one dependent clause, you're gonna have a complex sentence.
So you like to refresh and do a lot of spiraling in, because that's what
Yes.
we do in 7th grade. We spiral in whatever they don't remember, or sometimes what I like to do, I'll use that in as a bell ringer.
Yes.
You know, and I know you and Ms. Garza, your reading teacher for the team, also does that too. As the bell ringer, she'll spiral, you know, a
Oh,
take.
yeah, she's always spiraling back. She always comes back, and like I said, This year, we're not on the same team.
Right, right.
But since we're just in such close proximity to each other, that we'll still just give each other pointers of what we need to be doing. And she'll sometimes say things that she did, and I'll say, oh, yeah, let me tie that into what we're doing over here. And so I'll tie that into what we're doing. And then she'll also say, look, I'm tying this in with the writing over here. And so as long as all the kids are being like targeted with the writing and the reading and getting double doses of that, and our partners do the same thing as we're doing, then we know that they're going to be successful.
Correct. Very good. Well, thank you, Ms. Dominguez. Now I'm going to go to 8th grade, go over some stuff with them, and then we're going to go to the data room to see how the data room is. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank you.
Your numbers are wrong. We don't have the correct amount
Oh
of
my
students.
goodness.
And the number of SPEDs are incorrect.
So about how many kids do you all have in total in 8th grade that tested for the benchmark?
235 or 40. 240.
Okay. And I'm already filming. So Dr. Cortez, since I didn't film ask their names the first time, this is Mr. Garcia, 8th grade ELA, and this is Ms. Julie Reyes, 8th grade ELA. And we're gonna go over the benchmark. We're gonna compare, because I just got with sixth grade. And 6th grade total, their overall scores for reading and writing was a 76, with reading, which was a 78. So 7th grade scores total, writing was a 64, reading was a 76. Now 8th grade, if you don't want to say your score, you don't have to, but we can just
say our score. So that's actually what we can talk about. Like, why is it that? Because from what I'm hearing, 6th grade was the highest. Then it dropped down to 7th grade, you guys.
Right.
And now it's even lower again.
Correct.
In 8th grade.
Correct.
So
There's
going down
every year. Yeah, there's something going on. So, Ms. Reyes, what do you think might be going on? Is it just because the maturity level, or do you think it's for sure? I'm going to be very honest, Dr. Cortez. It's not the teachers, because these teachers are going full force with tutorials, study island, homework. So what do you think is going on with the students that it's just not happening? Do you think it's just the lack of not confidence, but the lack of that they just don't want to do it? The maturity level?
I think it has to do with the combination. So this benchmark had to have been a combination of both of them.
Okay.
Where the students just didn't take it seriously, and then the test was also kind of difficult for this release.
Correct. How many questions were on the, because this was a star release, correct?
This is the whole one. So this one. Whole one.
It was a star release for 2017.
Okay.
And it was a very tough test.
Okay.
It was a very tough test. Even though we went over the material,
Mhm.
the children still did fall short.
Of what was
What
going
the
on?
full thing? 44 questions.
44 questions.
Yeah, 44
So
questions.
your all's approaches is the same as everybody's approaches, 55.
Well, now we're changing.
Okay,
Now we're
what's
gonna change
changing?
it because we feel like
Only 8th grade is changing it? Because I think we're keeping it the same in 6th and 7th grade.
yeah, we're gonna change the way we're going over the material with these kids.
Okay, okay.
We have to because the way we have it structured now,
Correct.
it's just not working for them.
Correct.
Either one, the curriculum is going too fast for them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not able to digest it,
Correct.
right?
Mhm.
To take it in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think really it's just the exposure. I think to start type of passages.
Right, okay.
So from here on out, we're kind of doing objectives Monday and
Mhm.
Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
The objective, the TEK that they have to learn, and then the rest of the week is identifying that objective and the types of questions
Correct.
in a test.
Okay.
Or not in a test, but in a passage.
In a passage, okay. And Ms. Reyes, you'll be doing the same thing as well?
Yes.
Okay. So what was, if you don't mind me asking, your all's overall percentage, both of you all combined?
Let me see.
So you all are changing approaches, meets, and masters.
Correct. So, okay, the
That's,
district
you know what,
was-
that's actually good, because especially for this group, Dr. Cortez, I had this group last year, and I mean, you're gonna have a good group, you're gonna have a bad group, but this one was really, really tough, and I forewarned my two friends here what was gonna happen, and they're battling it out, and because they're the soldiers that they are. All right, so there
Our
we go.
percent score was 53.
Okay,
Our approaches, which is the one that they're looking at, is 45,
okay,
which was pretty low.
right, yes.
Um,
How did you all compare with district and state?
So district had 54% approaches, 56%. 56% percent score.
Correct. Okay.
But that's pretty low because if we were to look at last year's stuff,
Mm-hmm.
let me see if I can bring it up. Yeah, that's right.
Now this is all through Eduphoria. Do you prefer Eduphoria or DMAC?
I've never used it.
Ms. Reyes, Eduphoria or DMAC?
Yeah, only familiar with
Eduphoria. Okay. DMAC is mostly for STAR, but even that with DMAC it cleans it up a little bit more, but they don't do that for benchmarks. I wish they did though.
Clean it up
Huh?
how clean it up?
Well, like they clean it up. Like say for example, some of your students that don't count, or like the students that leave before the STAR test, or they leave right after the STAR test, they don't count for you anymore because they're no longer your students. So it's like a cleaned up version. Like 2 years ago, when I didn't have this group, I had a group before. I seriously thought I was gonna be like in the 60s, and it turned out I got an 81%. 81. That was the STAR test. I remember we were writing curriculum and I
Well,
like cried.
For
It was like, why are you
for the
crying?
district, last year we were 10 points above the district,
Mm-hmm.
and now it looks like we're about 10 points. Yeah, last year we were 10 points above district because we were scoring in the 60s.
Right.
That's why if I'm looking at this at the thing where I'm saying that the test was hard,
Mm-hmm.
the district overall scored low
Right. Yeah.
for this test.
Uh-huh.
This administration, this benchmark.
Mhm.
So overall, they did score lower. Last year, everybody was about 10 points higher.
10 points higher.
But now everyone, from what it looks like, so I think it was the same overall,
Okay.
across the other schools and stuff. But still, this group has a long way to go in order to be able to get anywhere close where they were scoring last year.
Exactly. So I know we were talking about it earlier the previous day. So like with tutorials, what are you all gonna do? Because my team suggested that we alternate every Monday.
Teachers, point of interruption, we're gonna have a prize giveaway for those students that have donated
Seriously.
for the food drive. Students, if I call your name, make your way to the front office.
The party never stops at Bill Garza Middle School.
First winner, Rebecca Alanis,
Oi.
7th grade. Rebecca Alanis, 7th grade.
All right. Well, what we're gonna do for my tutorials is.
Second name, George Santa Maria, 8th grade.
Hey, that was my
George
kid.
Santa Maria,
Anybody
8th grade.
have him? No, I think he's English one. Sorry, guys. Wait. So
Emiliano
what?
Gomez
He's not.
Bolaños,
Yes, thanks. Sorry.
6th grade. Emiliano Gomez Bolaños, 6th grade.
That's Mr. Ortiz, my mentor, going over the agenda. I guess. Wait. So.
Rebecca
Oh my. Okay.
Alanis, 7th
So.
grade.
So, Dr. Cortez, what I was telling Mr. Garcia and Ms. Reyes here, for my tutorials, we're gonna alternate every Monday next semester. So, one Monday it would be Ms. Davila.
7th grade.
Okay, let's let Mr. Ortiz finish if he ever decides to finish. Oh my God, this is so
I
embarrassing.
think you should stop it.
Sorry, but Dr. Cortez, we had to stop because we were rudely interrupted. We were talking about tutoring. Okay, I'm gonna be doing tutoring next semester every Monday, and then we alternate. Every Mondays we're gonna alternate me, Ms. Davila, and Ms. Ramirez. Now, for 6th grade, as you heard Ms. Dominguez say, that they focus on the TEK and that they have yet to decide what they're gonna do, but we're gonna flip back and forth of the tutoring. Now, 8th grade, I'm gonna ask you all, what are you all's plans for tutoring, and what are you all's materials?
Well,
What
like
y'all
I think I
think?
mentioned it last time when we were talking with Ms. Bonura that we're changing it. Now we're actually going to be here together.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because we realized two things. One, we both have different teaching styles.
Correct.
One, and we think maybe some of my kids might want hers, or her kids might like mine.
Correct.
We did that last year. It worked out really well when we would like co-teach basically together for in tutoring.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of really like the sit up here lecture, we're kind of gonna try doing both, right?
Right.
Where half the time we're gonna be kind of like lecturing up here, and then the rest of the time they're gonna be doing independent work. Because at the end of the day, the independent work is really what's gonna count for them in the test, for them
Right.
to be able to do on their own.
Yes.
And then of course we're just gonna be around monitoring or helping them more one-on-one, the ones that really need more help or that they need more guided help.
Very, very good.
But yeah, that's what we've already we tried it this past week. It worked out pretty good though, right?
It does. The kids are responding really well to it.
And the numbers are up.
Yeah, so I think that because we're both here, the kids are showing up.
Right. Okay, no, that's good. And you all are gonna be, when do you all do Study Island? Because I know I was mentioning that in like a little bit of my
We haven't
paper.
done that too much yet in tutorials, but
Mhm.
we do that a lot for makeup work, so they should already be doing it throughout the 6 weeks anyway.
Okay, correct.
We don't do any of the makeup work paper. Their
Right.
makeup work is on Study Island.
It's on Study Island. Okay. Now, Study Island, how would you all, I know you already incorporated it as for homework. Now for tutoring, would you create a lesson for tutoring, or would you all just ask them to like finish any of the homework
So
that they
that's
hadn't
actually what
finished?
we would do last year too. We would create like a tutorial folder or tutorial assignments for them.
Mhm.
So they knew whether we were here or not, they can go to the lab here, because usually they
Okay.
have a lab open for tutorials anyway.
Okay.
And then we would just set up the assignments. It's not that they're easy, but it's easy to implement and it's easy to get the grades for. Like to be able to see how well they're doing.
Right.
Or what they're not doing.
And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, they would go to the lab and they would do it. We would see it the next day.
Mhm.
So we still haven't started that yet, because we really wanted to kind of save that for next semester.
Right, yeah.
And right now we're doing a lot more guided stuff, and then next semester we're gonna letting him do a lot more.
Yeah, and I think that was the consensus between 6th and 7th, and now you just confirmed it. We're waiting a lot for next semester because that's going to be a little bit more. This was just barely the first benchmark, so it's showing you where they're at. The second administration of the benchmark is usually February?
It's February.
It's late January,
Early February. And from there, that's where we start to do the STAR camps, getting them prepared. But you all actually have it a little bit more tougher because
We do pre-star camps.
you do pre-STAR camps. And I think that's what our principal, Mr. Ramos, our new principal, had wanted to do, because I know Mr. Corena, our former principal, Dr. Cortez, was all for the pre-STAR camps, but he mainly wanted to focus on 8th grade and not really so much 7th and 6th grade. So now, with a new administrator in there, he wants to make it equal for everybody. Now, what do y'all think about that? Should 6th and 7th grade start the pre-camps?
That would be good, because then that means that we would get them at even a higher
Correct.
level than what they're even coming in.
Coming in. Ms. Reyes, do you agree with that?
I think so, and because if
It
it's
also prepares them
consistent,
for the rigor.
if it's consistent, yeah. This way, they'll already be coming in eventually into 8th grade, already knowing, okay, this is what's going to be expected. It's not gonna be something new that they're introduced, and this way, we'll hear less
Right.
griping from the students that it's too
That
much.
things are different.
It's too much, correct.
That things are different.
Because, yeah, once we've always tell them, like, every grade, the curriculum is different, the rigor is going to be different. And I mean, it is what it is, especially for you all. It's a little bit more tougher on you all because you have to prepare them for high school. And
6 months.
in 6 months. And I believe you all just took also, what was that test that you all just took
ACT
again?
Aspire.
Oh my God. Okay, so ACT Aspire, before we close off and we go to the data room, what is the ACT Aspire? What does it usually indicate?
It's basically like it's real, but it's like a mock
Mhm.
ACT to start preparing them for the ACT that they're going to be doing.
They're going to be taking in high school.
However, the problem with having taken this ACT Aspire test was it was taking after benchmarks,
Mhm.
and the students were already exhausted and overwhelmed from having taken already 2
Benchmarks.
benchmarks.
At the same time, that's
A-
also
a-
part of
and-
the same thing of just being in
In
getting
8th
older,
grade.
Because at the end of the
And-
day, every year they're just going to have to be
Right,
assessed and
but
assessed and assessed.
they didn't have the stamina for it. A lot of them,
They don't have
they couldn't take it. It was just too much for them.
Mhm.
So that's another thing that we need to work on is building up their stamina.
Correct. Now, did you all, I know that those scores really don't count, but how did they do overall? You all don't know.
We won't know until late next semester sometime,
Yeah, that's how they usually do.
but
And it was a time test also, no?
It was time test. They're not used to that. They're used to using the dictionary. They were not able to use it for the reading section.
Now,
Yeah.
was it like a paper test? Because I remember when I first got here and I was a co-teacher, we had to do it on the computer. The kids went to the computer lab.
No, it was.
No,
paper.
this was
It was all paper.
Paper test.
Wow, okay. Well, thanks guys for going over your results and your tutoring plans, and I will meet you all in the data room. Thank you. Thanks, Julie. Okay, Dr. Cortez, we are here in our data room, which is in the library. Some of my teachers couldn't be able to make it, so I'm gonna go over some stuff with you. We have our first 6 weeks plans of action here. This is from Ms. Silva from Special Education. This is Jaime Salinas from Special Education. We have our TEKS snapshot, which basically covers the TEKS that we're going over from each grade level. We have 7th grade reading, 7th grade math, 7th grade science, 7th grade history, as well as over here going back to 6th grade, the same 4 subjects as well. All the TEKS that are going to be covered. We have 8th grade right here, same. We have our co-teachers, which have to turn in their action plans as well for the first 6 weeks exam. And here's our STAR performance data for the 3-year comparison. We have it from 2016 to 2017 to 2018. As you can see here, our master's meets and approaches for each of the different grade levels. This is from 3 years ago from our STAR and what we've been tracking from 2016, 2017, 2018. We have our conversion table, our 3-year conversion table for the spring reading math STAR assessments. Now, the thing that we're going to talk about right here is our action plans, especially since my project is dealing with reading and ELA. We have 6th grade Miss Benavides, Miss Moreno, Miss Garza. The total students that tested were 315 and their percent of mastery was 71%. Now, they have their action plan, which includes collaborative work for each grade level, modifying lessons, and continuously evaluating progress. We have Ms. Vasquez, along with Ms. Dominguez and Ms. Gonzalez, who are writing, 318 tested, and they scored an 81.8%. They have also expressed reminders to stay on task, also tutorials, just like Ms. Dominguez had said, punctuations done daily with daily oral language. 7th grade, we have me, of course, my 7th grade reading with Ms. Davila and Ms. Macal. As we can see, we scored a total of, a 78.96 and 332 students tested. Again, we will be doing daily bell ringers, study island program, monitoring and continue with our slow tracker, and of course doing the tutorials Mondays, and we will be alternating. 7th grade writing, we have Miss Lara, Mr. Baez, and Miss Heglin. They scored, all of them had scored a total of 65%. They will be working on for their tutoring or things like that for their daily oral language, supporting details, and of course focusing on assignments and individual skills. For 8th grade, we have, whom I introduced, Mr. Garcia and Ms. Reyes. They scored a 52.70%, and like they said, they would be doing study island, focusing on expository texts, tutorial objectives focused on students' low objectives on the first 6 weeks test, and struggling students from previous week. We have Ms. Bonura, Ms. Greaves, and Ms. Guerra, who are working on the English. 226 students tested, and they scored a 41%. They will also be focusing on each of the lowest TEK that was scored low, and from there they will be seeing what they need to do in order to get that completed. Now, mostly all of them have been the same action plans regarding tutoring and other materials that needed to be done. Here is our student progress domain for 2. We have Ms. Benavides, 6th grade, 105 student group count, 57. Ms. Garza, 103, 71. Ms. Davila, 109, 80%. Ms. Ramirez, 109, 71. And me, 109 with a 31. Now, these right here, these scores are what are of the domain 2. And domain 2 is basically what the student can do and what the student cannot do, and that's what we're focusing on our SLO. We have math right here. For writing, we only have one teacher who has posted her data, which our principal will probably not like, but we will fix that. And here we have, to finish it off, our first 6 weeks comparison. So we're going to be focusing on reading, which is 69.28, that's 6th grade, and that was 70.79. Then we have 6th grade writing, 46.4 and 44.65. 7th grade, we have 69.49 and a 78.72. Writing a 73.61 and a 72.42. 8th grade reading, we have a 33.72 and a 52.7. 8th grade writing, 25% and a 34.25%. So what we've been doing, as you can see, the ELA is going to be focusing on more of what the lowest TEK is going to be. Like I talked with Ms. Dominguez, Mr. Garcia, and Ms. Reyes, and myself. Obviously, we're going to be focusing on the lowest TEK, getting that ready to, you know, add more tutorials, spiral it in, redirect kids, modify, differentiate instruction so that they'll be able to get it. And of course, over the holiday break, you know, we would have to do a refresher course just so they could remember and get those stuff done. I hope you have a very blessed, happy Thanksgiving, and hope to see you soon. Thank you for everything, Dr. Cortez. Thank you. Blessings. Bye-bye.